We appreciate your coming and for the service that you render for this country, particularly at this very trying time when we're observing the creeping totalitarianism that we have mentioned before. The event of the last 24 hours in this country prompted an emergency NWCA meeting today, which actually started since yesterday. So we continue the meeting today, and before I proceed, I need to introduce my colleagues that are here with me for this briefing, which is very, very important. To my far left is the National Financial Secretary, Dr. Daniel Winkoro, brand new Category Chairman from the South region, Mr. Ima Ogidi, the National Treasurer of the party, Alhaji Yayari Ahmed. My name is Debo Olugun. I am saddened to be addressing this because these are issues that goes to the existence of this country as a nation and the unfortunate consequences of the actions of the irresponsible or progressive Congress, particularly in the last 24 hours. Two issues that happened in the last 24 hours that is threatening democracy in this country. One, the ill-conceived, ill-advised, and reckless declaration of state of emergency in the peaceful River State. And secondly, the vengeful, politically motivated action of revocation, so-called revocation of the certificate of occupancy of the People's Democratic Party and two properties in Abuja. Yesterday, as you will recall, we issued a statement, which I must thank you because you assisted in conveying the content of that statement to Nigerians and to the whole world. In that statement, the PDP totally rejected, and we're again reiterating our rejection of the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. Then the purported suspension of Governor Fubara, as stated yesterday, and again we are re-emphasizing now, cannot stand. It is unconstitutional, it is impracticable, it is invalid, and completely out of the question, as there's no provision in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, that empowers the president to dismantle a subnational government or suspend a democratically elected state governor under any situation whatsoever. What President Tinubu attempted to do is to suspend the Constitution of Nigeria, overturn a democratic government, and force an undemocratic regime in Nigeria, and particularly in this case, Rivers State, in gross violation of sections 1, subsection 2, section 14, subsection 2A, section 180, section 217, subsection 2B and C, and section 3052 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. And I want to have this conversation to go step by step on those constitutional provisions that we just read out. Section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides, and I quote, says the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall not be governed, nor shall any person or group of persons take control of the government of Nigeria or any part thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. So whatever happens to the government of this country, it must be in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. The Constitution, throughout the provisions contained therein, does not empower the President to dismantle or attempt to dismantle any tier of government or appoint a sole administrator to take office as state governor or override the duties of the state assembly under any situation. And I want to draw some emphasis here. Even when there is a challenge to a state legislature, there are provisions in this Constitution that empowers the National Assembly to make law for the good governance and peace of that state legislature. Not that the president will say, well, we'll shut you down. He does not have that power. He cannot, and that's why that state of declaration cannot stand. This, then section 14.2, which is clear, talks about sovereignty of the people. And I'll read that for emphasis. Section 14, subsection 2A, provides, and I quote, sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom government through this Constitution derives all its powers and authority. What it means is that for you to be in a position of authority in Nigeria, it must be by reason of the authority given to you by the sovereign vote of the people of Nigeria. And that was demonstrated by the election of Governor Fubara as the elected governor of Rivers State, along with his deputy, and of course the House of Assembly as an institution, as an arm of government. The three arms of government are co-equal branch of government. And that's why we talk about having rule of law and order in government. This constitutional sovereignty, as provided for in section 14.2a, is exercisable only by the people through their elected representatives, including state governors and legislators. The president, therefore, no matter how much he might imagine his powers are, under this Constitution of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, has no powers whatsoever to override this sovereignty under any guise, except as provided for in the Constitution. Declaration of a state of emergency, suspension or attempt to suspend a governor of a state, and shutting down the legislative house cannot, and is not part of that power that he has. Section 180 of the Constitution is clear as to the tenure of a state governor. It prescribes a 4-year commencing from the date of swearing in. And that has been established even by the Supreme Court. You will recall the case of Governor Obi in Anambra, where it was decided. That's why you have some state now with staggered election. Because it was, and not by suspension by the president or any other person. Section 305, which the president copiously copied, I think ill-advised, and basically without due consideration of what the Constitution says. And I'm going to read that for emphasis. The president shall immediately after the publication, transmit copies of the official gazette of the government of the Federation containing the proclamation, including the details of the emergency, to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, each of whom shall forthwith convene or arrange for a meeting of the House of which he is President or Speaker, as the case may be, to consider the situation and decide whether or not to pass a resolution approving the proclamation. I mean, this is so clear. It is not that if the president wakes up in a dream or something comes to him and he says, oh, there's a state of emergency. He can be dreaming and say there's a state of emergency and then declares. No. When there are circumstances, he will, after the publication in the Gazette, he will transmit to those houses because sovereignty belongs to the people, as represented by the elected officials and legislators in the National Assembly with regards to the president. And thereafter, it says this, to consider the situation. It is not that the president will consider the situation. It is for the people, the elected people, that has sovereignty to consider the situation and decide. Not that the president will decide. Because let's say I heard him say he decides. He cannot decide. It is the people that decides. Or not to pass or not to pass. The National Assembly, through the two chambers, will make a determination after those facts are presented by the president. The president violated the Constitution by ordering, and this is serious, that the proclamation of state of emergency in Rivers State should take immediate effect. That sounds like a strange word in a democracy. We're used to that in the military. But we think 26, 25, 26, 27 years of democracy should allow begin to purge us of those kind of comments with immediate effect without the approval of the National Assembly. He cannot do that. That's unconstitutional, ill-advised, and it cannot stand. Then I go to section 217, subsection 2C. It empowers the deployment, and this is key, of in a state of emergency. I'm going to refer to the Constitution in a more copious way here. 217, and it deals with, it says, establishment and composition of the armed forces of the Federation. The very relevant point of it is about deployment in situations such as the president envisaged, which was not in Rivers State at the time of declaration or the purported declaration. One of the things in section C of 2 of section 217 is, and I quote it, it says, empower the deployment of the armed forces to, this is key, suppressing insurrection and acting in, note this, in aid of civil authorities. It says, in aid of civil authorities to restore order when called upon to do so by the president, but subject to such conditions as may be prescribed by an act of National Assembly. Section 217 was violently violated by the president. Subsection 2C, by deploying not in aid of civil authorities, but in dismantling civil authorities. And in this matter, who are the civil authorities in Rivers State? The governor, the deputy governor, and the House of Assembly. Now, assuming without considering that indeed there was some breakdown of law of order, assuming without considering because there was none there, the president is only required under section 217, subsection 2C, to aid the authority to restore order. The civil authority, as I mentioned earlier in Rivers State, there's the governor, deputy, and the assembly. The president cannot, under the Constitution, attempt to dismantle civil authority. He is, by the provision of this Constitution, expected to aid. He was to aid the sustenance of order and peace in the state, not to use that opportunity on that guise to dismantle those civil authorities, to aid them, not to dismantle them. The PDP calls on the National Assembly because these are grievous issues of violation of the Constitution by the president. And so the legislative arm of government, they have powers and they need to invoke that power. We are urging them to do so with regard to this constitutional breach. Governor Fubara, under the provisions of the 1999 Constitution, remains the elected governor of Rivers State. The PDP urges the military and other agencies to be on the side of the law and restrict themselves to their constitutional role of defending democratic rule and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. The PDP will continue to call for calm and stand with the governor of Rivers State, Governor Fubara, and the people of Rivers State at this very trying time, challenging as it were. President Tinubu should note, and this is to him, Mr. President, please note that a president is expected to be a father of the nation. In a situation of crisis, what is expected to find is a resolver of problems, not an exacerbator of the problem. Mr. President, you are called upon as a father of the nation to solve problems, to bring experience, to bring expertise, to call for calm, not to exacerbate the problem. You should be a resolver of problems, not a man who would increase the problem. Mr. President, your action now, and this is important, the action of Mr. President is now beginning to hurt the people of Rivers State and indeed the nation. Because as at the time, and you should know this, as at the time of the declaration of the state of emergency in Rivers State, there was peace. We don't believe we can say so now with the declaration of Mr. President of the state of emergency. We thank you very much, gentlemen, for the press, for listening the position of the PDP with regards to those two issues. Now, going forward, there's another development. So I'll continue to talk about that. I mentioned two issues, one on the state of emergency, and second one, which is another grave threat to democracy. I'm going to be showing you some documents as we proceed. I'm going to get them right now. About the revocation of certificate of occupancies and title document to the properties belonging to the PDP. One, you can look at it from that, but you see that is a targeted effort to ensure that an attack, and like I released yesterday, to stifle opposition in this country. In any event, as you will see presently, those were targeted at democracy. They were targeted at ensuring that opposition are stifled. These are effort as a last effort, because the APC and those colluding with them, they found out that against all odds, with all the attack on the party, with all the shenanigans that had been generated, that the party continued to strive along, using all the machineries within the system of the party to resolve issues. And they came out with this one. Oh, let's tell them they revoked their document. What will be curious about this, and this is very important, with respect to the property of the party, there's a pending court case as to the ownership of the property. And the suit number of that case is CV 1363-17. It was in 2017. Between Nikon Insurance Limited, and here this, the defendant, the Ministry of Federal Capital Territory, represented by the Minister of Federal Capital Territory. He's the first defendant in that case. The other defendant is People's Democratic Party. There's a pending action in which the minister is a party and is revoking the same property to which he is a defendant in the court case. That sounds curious, isn't it? Here's the document. The last adjourned, it wasn't a dead case. The last adjourned day was February the 10th. They were in court. The minister was represented by his lawyers. February 10th, about a month ago. This on the same property that you are purportedly revoking, in which you are a party. And that tells you more story that it is not just about revocation, it's about other things beyond revocation, about some issues that are mentioned there. Represented by a barrister, Joseph Eric, is counsel to the Honorable Minister of the FCT in that case. The next adjourned date is May 5th. So it's an ongoing case. And then the minister, so now you now know why. But having said that, what we can tell you that, and to our part, the property, our titles of properties are secure, safe, and our party members should not, there's nothing to be bothered about. Because the properties are validly our party's property, and in any event, when a matter is in court in which the minister is, through the FCT, is a party, it's a defendant. As a matter of fact, the next adjourned date on the 5th of May was at the instance of the lawyer of the FCT, by extension by the minister of the FCT, because he's the head of that ministry. The adjournment was at the instance to allow the lawyers of the minister to cross-examine the witness of the claimant. So it wasn't as if they are not aware of this. So we can just say there are no issues there. We know there are more to this, and you probably, this should be clear to the whole world, that there are more to the word revocation. I thank you very, very much for listening. My friend, I mean, they are in the eye of the storm.
People are confused in Port Harcourt now. Yes, it's people are just moving about, but they are confused because they don't know what is going to happen. Because it has never happened before. It's alien. And then Mr. President, all through his speech, if you recall, he blamed the governor all through. But what happened to the chief instigator? No mention was mentioned of the FCT minister, his own minister, who you all know is the chief instigator. He has held several press briefings, he has insulted elders, he has insulted the John Nation. Only last Saturday, he went to Balama. He went with a contingent of soldiers. He said he was being honored. A minister going about with a contingent of soldiers. So when the thing was announced on Tuesday, everybody just put their hands together. And you know why he cannot do it? Because he has found a loose cannon, a man who has no respect for authorities, who believes in his own man. That's why he did what he's doing. It's unfortunate for us that our president has not brought Ibok. Some of our men have started running out of Port Harcourt. Those our senior officers, party officials were there. Because it is an APC threat to democracy. They want to capture River State. If you recall, the FCT minister has been saying he's going to deliver River State. And this one of them, he's not going to stop at River State because he believes. That's why we're telling our people we have to be very careful. We're going to tell our governors to watch it. His target now is the South-South. By the grace of God, I represent the South-South. My assignment was to bring peace there, discuss with our people, but unfortunately, they're using the big sticks on us. So we are calling on you all, we're telling the whole world to know that this is the 2027 agenda, nothing else. The lawyers have said it. It's not constitutional, I'm not a lawyer. But as a layman, I know you cannot do what you are doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We will expect that our members would follow through the position of the party, particularly since it is so clear that this state of emergency declaration has ulterior motives, and in any event is unconstitutional, particularly in the whole of section 305 or any other part of the constitution. There's nowhere that the president can suspend a governor of a state or abridge the life of an assembly. Our position is very clear. We would expect that our parties, who are members of our parties, truly so-called, would follow through the position of the party as clearly elucidated, and we have provided that. And we ask is to provide the guide, and then we'll take it up from there. A party of rule of law and order, we will take what steps and action that is consistent with the law, and take that which is necessary to ensure that the provisions of this constitution, which we all swore to obey and abide with, are met. And so that's what we will do. With respect to our members, the first question actually has equally been answered using the same question you are asking me in another form. When we communicate to our members, there's a channel of communication. We have communicated, we will expect, and that is where I will leave it at now. What I'm engaging you on today is about the issue of the state of declaration of the emergency. And yet you said something about we suddenly woke up. Maybe you have decided not to follow us as much as you used to be. And I understand that. I understand that. There could be lethargy from your end. It's okay. It's understandable. But I can tell you something. This party is here to stay. No matter, I just gave you an example. Some of the challenges. When I mentioned the word advisedly, colluding, have people colluding. Those are challenges you have. But again, in a political setting, it can happen. And when it does happen, what you do as a party is to ensure what is the best way out of it. Okay? Recall that we set up a reconciliation committee. There are people who are irreconcilable. But you must give that room the opportunity to reconcile, right? And that you have not reconciled as fast as you thought doesn't mean inactivity. Doesn't mean that we're sleeping. It means that it may not be as fast because of the vagaries and probably the issues and individuals involved. But as a party, we're focused. That was why. Now they saw that we're making progress. It might be slow. You may not be visible as much as you want them to be. That's why this idea of revocation comes in. And now you can see, oh, they're putting themselves together. They begin to take a step. Okay, why don't you? And like